I guess first off, could you say your name and tell us a little bit about what you do now?
Yeah, I'm AC McCray. I'm sort of a multi hyphenate, if you want to say that, an actor, producer, director, writer, uh, crime scene tech in the day job life. A little bit of everything that kind of comes my way. Business manager for my wife's business now, and just so many things. But we'll say actor, director, writer, museum owner is the biggest focus of what I do currently.
Okay. How would you say your time breaks down? I mean, that's so much stuff, and even just being a husband, like you said, how do you find time to do all that in the day? And how does the time break down between having all of that in your workload?
Well, I'd like to say that there's a lot of time in the day that I can do things, but it's really I honestly I sleep about 2 hours, 4 to 4 hours a night on average. There's a lot of stuff I just do. My obviously my day job is through the day, and then once I get home, I'm just kind of consistently working on a project a night at least. Most of the time, my wife and I take time and just watch our shows, watch what we want to do, same as anybody else. But there's those times when she's resting, or we've got other things that I'm just constantly working. I have a notepad that I keep with me most of the time, and I just work like that as best I can. So my day's about sort of I'll say 60% day job, and then 30% night job, and then 10 to 15% just filling in the rest of the time with whatever the family has, because the family, they've got their own commitments and stuff as well. So trying to find time in all of our schedules is the hard part, but we make it work.
Yeah, definitely. That's certainly relatable. My kid's almost 5, and I'm starting to go through all of that and trying to find projects to do, or not finding projects to do, but finding the time to do the projects in the after all the things that life throws at you, anyways.
Yeah, the best thing about I can say is, there's days where I want to do stuff and it's like, yeah, it's more of a family day, so let's go do that. You'll find the balance, especially as the kids get older and stuff. And man, my kids are going to be graduating in 3 years. Like the last one will be graduated, and man, I can't even imagine anymore the young kid life.
Yeah, I I already can barely imagine what it would be like to have another baby. So I can believe that time's flying way too quick.
Yeah, I mean that's how it is with kids, man, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So what was your first job that you ever had?
First job I ever had was actually working as a dishwasher in a little diner called the Country Kitchen in North Webster, Indiana. Little, mostly busy in the summertime place, but I went in there and sprayed down those dishes and did everything I could to make them nice and neat and clean, and I absolutely sucked at it.
So did you witness a crime scene while you were washing dishes there, or what kind of
No, no,
transitioned you
no.
into?
So,
That's quite
so I'm
different.
yeah, so I'm kind of a guy that has done, like I said, a little bit of everything. I kind of, stuck with the media stuff for quite a few years, and then realized, this is fun, but it's definitely not going to be something I'm going to be able to do full time. And you get to a point where you kind of realize that after a while. So, I did all the little Joe jobs in high school, the stuff that we didn't nobody really wants to do, the dishwashing, the retail clerk, all that stuff. And then just in my adult life, I wanted to go to college, never really did the college thing, went twice, and just I didn't want people to read to me out of a book and pay thousands of dollars for it. And so it was a roundabout way of doing it, but I spent 10 years just gaining knowledge in anything that seemed interesting to me. Took a lot of jobs that I hated just to learn about things, and just kind of grew the skills from there. Doing crime scene these days is sort of something I stumbled into. Actually, I was in a terribly dead end job at a factory, running their business basically as the business. The owner had checked out, his partner had quit. He brought in his son that was just inept and unqualified to do it, and I had to get out. So I just applied for any job and every job I could, and I'm like, something will fall in line. And was offered the crime scene job running a photo lab at a police department in a very busy city here in Indiana, and kind of got into that way. And I didn't know a thing about it outside of the stuff I saw on TV, like Law and Order and CSI shows and stuff. Like
Right.
that's what everybody says in their interviews too. It's funny, but that's all I knew, and so I kind of transitioned on into that. And it's something I really enjoy. Is it something I want to do every day the rest of my life? No, it's a really hard job when you have to look at those things and process those things every day. So I'll say this is what I plan on doing until I can get to a point where I can comfortably retire. We'll say that much.
That definitely sounds pretty intense. I think a lot of the jobs that you've done have been intense in different ways. Like you were a wrestler at one point, you were like a radio
Yep.
DJ,
Yeah.
even acting. We met through you doing physical acting, like you did Matt Foley and threw yourself literally into a table several times, breaking it. And all your jobs kind of have a passion and a intensity to it, I guess, in different ways.
Yeah, and that's kind of been my thing is I'm not the kind of guy who can go work on the line in a factory, and God bless the people who can. I'm not putting anyone down, but for me that's something I can't do. I can't process information that way. Like I have to stand here and touch this container or look at this thing as it goes on a line. I That's not for me. That's, I have a highly analytical brain. I have a creative side that's a mile wide. I've got to do something that is interesting to me. And so I've taken a lot of, like I said, taken a lot of jobs, learned a lot, but in anything I do that I've stuck with for quite a while, be it business, media, or like the acting type stuff, anything like that, I've just really had to focus up and say, this is what I want. This is what I have a passion for. And I just go out and do it. It's cliche, but life's way too short to not do anything for any amount of time that you don't want to do. I mean, I just turned 40 last year, and I know that, my time is probably more behind me than it is ahead, realistically speaking. Who knows? I could have another 50 years here on Earth. But what do we do with that time? And that's what I'm just trying to do, is just fill the time, love my family, and just have stories to tell, really. I mean, if you've seen the movie Big Fish, it's kind of like that. He had all those great stories, and he might have embellished them a little bit, but they were still stories based in truth.
Yeah, definitely. Is there any super memorable stories from any of your various careers that stand out?
Oh man. Well, there I'm actually working on two books right now at the same time. I have a book about my wife and I's relationship called Love in the Time of Addiction that we're going to be putting out hopefully later this year around October. Just kind of sharing that story. But I've got another book full of just random stories of just the failures and successes and weird things that I've had in my life.
That sounds awesome.
Probably the coolest thing for me is, I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan. Ghostbusters celebrating its 40th anniversary, got the new Frozen Empire movie coming out this week. I've just been a fan my whole life. And so I spent years developing a Ghostbusters themed attraction that became this hobby project that became this big thing where I had schematics and blueprints, and this is how we're going to do this and that and whatnot. And I was able to present it to Sony a couple times over the last few years. And we got so close. It was so close. I can't give a lot of details, but they were interested, they were listening, and then it was literally contractual language and some other stuff that made them stop the process dead.
Oh man.
And there's it would have been this whole recreation of the firehouse. You walked in, you're playing games in there. There's Ghostbusters laser tag where you strap on a proton pack. I mean, I had all these ideas, and literally it just got shut down by language in a contract. So that's a cool thing. The even cooler part was invited to the Ghostbusters Frozen Empire premiere last week. Wasn't able to go, but the fact that those people that make the movies know my name and know who I am, that's a pretty cool thing to experience. I've done a little bit of everything in life, and so it depends on what, there's stories I can tell, there's stories I can't tell or shouldn't tell, but just little cool things like getting the approval of people like Lloyd Kaufman, the president of Troma Studios. I did a Troma film that comes out film festivals this year called Kill Dolly Kill. It premiered last year at Fantastic Fest in Austin alongside the Toxic Avenger reboot. And Lloyd was somebody that, growing up in high school, I'm like, man, this is what I want to do. He's why I really stuck with acting, because I wanted to make a Troma movie. And it took me 20 years, but I did it. And then to come out of the premiere in Vegas last year, and there's Lloyd, and he's just like, you're hilarious. And I'm like, I just won Lloyd Kaufman's approval, my childhood hero, and to get that approval from him. Just lots of different things like that, just doing things people say you shouldn't do this. You're not going to be able to. You're a poor kid from Fort Wayne, Indiana. What are you going to do in your life? Well, I'll show you. And it may not be as big or grand as some people have done, but I don't care what some people have done. I care about what I've done, and I've got great friends out of it, a ton of great memories. Again, so many stories I could share, but we'd be here for like 4 or 5 hours doing this. And they'll all come out eventually. They will.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to that, and
Yeah,
I'm sure I'll be speaking about your book whenever it comes out, if we have permission to speak about that on my podcast or something. Um,
absolutely.
but going back to trauma, and also when we first met, you had been working on putting on a stage show of Cannibal the Musical that was had some controversy to it, and some backlash, I guess, for lack of a better word, without going too deep. But
Well, no,
um,
I can tell that story. There wasn't really backlash. It was, so we were in this theater in Fort Wayne that I helped co-found called the Firehouse Theater, and you were there. You were one of the young actors, and I was trying to, it was you and your family, and then a couple other of the kids that were there were the only ones that really cared about anything, and everybody else just was being dropped off by their parents to be babysat. That's why I ended up leaving. But we actually got permission to do Cannibal the Musical. Jason McHugh, who was in the movie version of the movie, was the guy that handled the licensing at the time. He's like, we don't have a script. Everybody kind of just adapts their own script. They do what they want. And so I basically took the movie script and added a scene to the beginning that was a disclaimer that was fairly dirty. It was more based in the Orgasmo world of Trey Parker and Matt Stone, where you have the ladies, coming and knocking on the porn set at the beginning. But the lady that I was running the theater with, she didn't want to lose her homeschool business sponsorship because she thought that was everything. And so there was some disagreements there, and I ended up walking away because, if something's not right, it's not right. And we should have been Fort Wayne's Fringe Theater, because at the time, and I don't know if their Fort Wayne has a Fringe Theater now, but at the time there was nothing. They had the Youth Theater, which was, one of the top in the country. They had the Civic Theater. They had all the other little murder mystery groups, and this group and that group. We didn't have a Fringe Theater, and that's what I thought the Firehouse was going to be. But once we got in, it became apparent. No, she kind of said, well, it's my money, my way or the highway. And it became for lack of a better term, a bastardized children's theater. And it just, parents were dropping their kids off to be babysat, and that's not what I was about. I knew it was over for me when I had moved out of the theater, because we were living there, and again, living in a firehouse like the Ghostbusters. But we were living there for a period of time, and we had moved out, and I came back to drop off my key, and the guy who had taken over for me as managing director was doing a improv class with kids on stage, and it was just kids just saying words and laughing at each other. They weren't doing anything, and I'm like, this is going to fail. This is going to fail spectacularly. And unfortunately, the lady that was my partner ended up losing a significant amount of money, from what I understand, and complained about it for years. I wish her well. I haven't talked to her in probably about 15, 16 years now. I don't wish her any ill will at all. But it was just a very big clash of business ideals. And she thought, well, I don't have to listen to anybody since it's my money, when she didn't have quite the experience that I did on the business end and putting it towards what we needed to go for. And it is what it is. The theater is gone. The building's still there. It's still a beautiful building. Last I knew, it was a comic book store. So if you ever on State Street in Fort Wayne, go check it out, whatever it is now.
Yeah. Well, there was most of that I knew. There was a little bit that I didn't know. So I do appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
And I guess the three things that I kind of got out of that is, like, you had the courage to not only put on a Matt Stone and Trey Parker show like Cannibal the Musical, you also had the perseverance to keep going after it didn't work out like that. And you also had just the tenacity, I guess, to stick to your beliefs and want what's best, regardless of what other people are saying and thinking. You stick to your guns and what you believe in and what's going to create the best outcome.
Yeah, and that's something I've kind of always been like, and it was sort of solidified even more after that fact, not even before that. But I've always just been somebody who said, I'm going to do this. And nobody told me, you can't be a pro wrestler. That's stupid. Why would you do that? I went out and did that. You can't run a theater. You can't do this. You can't do that. Tell me I can't, and watch me do it. That's kind of been my all-consuming motivation. I came from a really bad childhood. I had a very abusive upbringing, both emotionally and physically. Lots of things in there that made me just want to sort of rise above what I was supposed to be. And nobody can really tell me you can't do it. You know, I'm still pushing for things that I shouldn't be at 40 years old. I would love to play Blob in an X-Men movie. I think it's great. I keep bugging Kevin Feige. I send him a letter at least once a month to his office at Marvel Studios. I'm sure none of them ever get read, but hey, that's okay. I'm gonna bug him and bug him and bug him and try to find those ways in. It worked for what's the actor who played Shang-Chi?
Simu Liu?
Simu Liu, yeah.
Yeah.
Worked for him. That's how he got it. He went online and said, "Hey, I want to do this." So
Oh, wow.
maybe it can be the same thing, but you know, just a little bit of luck there. If I don't ever reach that goal, that's fine. You know, I've done movies with people that I am just huge fans of. My youngest son passed away in 2011. He was named Ash after the character from the Evil Dead movies. Bruce Campbell knows who he is. I actually just talked to Bruce's brother Don this morning. So I mean, you build those relationships, and you know, it comes to a point where you're like, yeah, this is cool, but I'm still going to do what I want to do, and I'm still going to make these relationships, make these connections. And for anybody that watches this, hears this, whatever, that's really the secret, is go out there and don't wait for it to come to you. And I think that's what too many people do. They wait for it to come. Don't wait for it to come. Go out and get it, because it's not going to come if you don't.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great advice. I love that. You said that you've recently gotten a like an traveling oddities museum. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we run a museum called the Wicked Wonders Dark History and Oddities Museum. We sort of branched this museum out of the fact that my kids kept bringing home their history homework, and it was just the biggest garbage you could imagine. Like, they're not teaching history, they're teaching how to take a test. And that's not a slam on teachers. Teachers should be paid more, they should be able to teach properly. But we're in such a politicized world where you're going to offend somebody with any part of history at this point. So we just started collecting things, and we have all sorts of items. You know, we have tons of stuff from World War II that soldiers brought back. You know, was basically a Nazi memorabilia that they brought back, and when they passed away, their family doesn't want it. Well, what do we do with this? The best thing I've ever heard about that is from a Holocaust survivor directly, and she said, "You share it. You share it with the world, no matter how uncomfortable it is, because we're dying, and our stories are not going to be able to be shared by us much longer." And so, getting that kind of a command from somebody who was actually there, that's a pretty strong reason to continue showing this stuff. As much as, you know, these garbage people that are into that stuff, they have their weird motives, but it's not about that. It's about showing this really did happen. We actually have a book that was recovered from one of the concentration camps that still has a thumbprint on the inside of it where somebody grabbed it and ripped out some pages, possibly to go die. I mean, it's a very emotional thing to see, but we want to bring history to people. As part of that, we don't just do the darker parts of history. We've got war stuff, we've got serial killer stuff, mob stuff. We've developed relationships with people in those worlds, both that were active participants and were on the outskirts that were in relationships with some of these people or whatnot. And I don't want to give a lot of names there to drive people in that way, but people are people. And at this point in some of their lives, whether they've done something horrible in the past or not, it's where they are now. And that's kind of how I look at it. So we want to show that it's not just this is a part of history that's so dark and disturbing, but look, maybe this person's changed a little bit. A good example of this, I will give an example. David Berkowitz, the son of Sam. We talked to him for a period of a couple of years. He sent us his book, and he's a born again Christian now. He does sort of prison ministry type stuff. I would absolutely trust him today to hang out, have dinner, watch my kids, not, for long periods of time. But would I have allowed that like 30, 40 years ago? Probably not, because of where he was then. But that goes to show you that people can change. I hope he's doing well. I haven't talked to him recently, but that was one of the people we connected with because of our museum. We wanted to, get his side of his story, talk to him a little bit. But yeah, he's doing the prison ministry thing now. Last I knew, he was doing really well. He's accepted the fact that he deserves to be in prison the rest of his life for what he did. And that's a huge step for somebody like that, because you see people, we kind of have the serial killer culture in our world now, where, the Dahmer show and the Bundy stuff like that. Those guys really didn't have any remorse, I don't believe. But that's their personal thing that they have to deal with. For me, I thought David was a nice enough guy, and we talked to him. We was actually we asked him to perform our wedding, my wife and I's wedding at one point. We were gonna go out there, but he's not ordained, so he couldn't do that. But he said in all the years we were the first people that ever asked him to do that. So we've got the letters from him inside saying, "Wow, that's pretty cool." But no, I mean, so you meet a lot of really interesting people doing this museum thing, and we try to share those parts that we know aren't getting taught anywhere, and we try to share the full factual story. We don't, if you're a museum, your goal should be to present the facts and the truth as it happened. You shouldn't put any slant on it. And so that's what we try to do. Now, of course, with the museum, not everybody's interested in that. There has to be a hook. There has to be a kicker. There has to be something that people like. So I've, used some of the Hollywood connections that I have, and we've been able to obtain some different props, wardrobe from different things. That's sort of our big attraction right now. People just absolutely love that. We've got the 14-foot tall Pinheads banner from American Horror Story Freak Show. It's in my bedroom right now, rolled up. It's massive, and people love seeing that because they were, I remember that was along the entrance in the show, and I'm like, yeah, it's the exact one. We don't buy any replicas. We don't buy anything. Everything we have, whether it's dark history, Hollywood, whatever, it's all production used, production made, screen used stuff. We don't do any replicas because if we wanted to be a replica museum, anybody can do that. We want to show things that actually existed. We've got some other cool things in that aspect. We just picked up one of Craig Robinson's "Take Your Panties Off" shirts from This Is the End. Love that thing. It actually is my size, so the first thing I did was put it on. So we've got stuff like that, and then really cool. We don't have anything major. I would say the biggest Hollywood piece we have is either Johnny Depp's Whitey Bulger old man prosthetics from Black Mass.
Oh, that's really awesome. No?
John Witherspoon's coveralls that he wore as the Pops in the Friday movies. We've got a set of those. So again, we have a little something for everybody, I guess. If you're into dark stuff, if you're not, you can look at the Hollywood stuff. You don't have to go to the scary sections. You don't have to see the haunted stuff or whatever. We don't even pull the haunted stuff out anymore. There's a story. Okay, I'll tell you this story too. You see, now you're bringing out the stories. We bought a haunted piece that was a Victorian era little mourning locket. It had a little lock of hair in it from some girl that supposedly drowned back in the 1800s. People had seen this thing move at the store that it was at in the case and everything. So we bought it. We investigated it. Multiple people investigated it. New Jersey Paranormal being the biggest group that did. And it has something very, very negative attached to it. As soon as we got it in our house, it made both me and my son violently ill without even touching it. And we got an intelligent response orb that floated in when we asked it to appear on a camera shot. And then it made my wife have some issues as well. So, I mean, wow. Very powerful, very negative stuff. And it's not for everybody. Like, we did a Halloween tour last year, did 4 or 5 different shows and took some of that stuff out. Some people it didn't bother them. Other people were like, I don't want to stand near that. And they could feel something with it. So, lots of stuff like that. But when we do the museum displays, we don't have a set location. People are like, when are you guys getting a facility? Never. We want to be able to take the stuff to wherever. We do a lot of parties. We do a lot of events because we're fairly low cost. The other cool thing that we do is we do something called our Wicked Photo Ops. You can go to a museum and you can take pictures of certain items and whatever. Why would you do that? Why don't you want to hold it? So we give people the opportunity to hold the item, take a picture with it for a very low fee. That's kind of how we make our money. We're not ever going to go non-for-profit just because of the logistics there. We wouldn't be able to own our own collection anymore. We'd have to have a board of directors and all that stuff. So this is just kind of how we fund ourselves. We get items, we either buy them ourselves or we have them donated by people for no tax break, really, because they can't. So we do a lot of that, mostly done northern Indiana, southern Michigan, up at the Chicago area is where we've been, but we can do anywhere in pretty much the world. We're actually discussing with one of the big Comic-Cons in the UK right now to bring some of our props from the TV show The Originals over there. My wife and I were the only people to get engaged on the set with the help of the cast during filming. And we've got stakes, we've got daggers, we've got pistols, we've got a whole collection of stuff we've been able to put together from that. And it's, again, personal to us because we just have that connection to the show from being there and having those guys help us get married or get engaged, I should say.
Did you guys do work on that show, or were you extras or something, or how did that happen?
A friend of mine was the first AD on the series, pretty much for the entire 5-season run. He skipped out for a little bit, but him and I ended up doing a movie together right at the same time, coincidentally, that I met my wife. Now, so inside tea here, my wife is a former adult film actress, a mainstream one. I am the albino poop emoji. And so people would think, hey, this isn't going to work out, you know, the attractive girl and the fat guy, but it's very much in a Family Guy dynamic is what we have. But I didn't know that at the time that she would have any interest in me. So I'm like, I got to impress this girl. So we started having my friend, and coincidentally, it was her favorite show that he worked on. And I'm like, well, can you just get me a video of the lead character saying hi to her? And that's really kind of what got her to take notice of me, because I said I was going to do it, and I did it. I told her I was going to get it done before I even had confirmation I could get it done. I was willing to throw money at this guy, like, please just do it. But he did it for me, and just as a favor. And then when I was ready to propose, he's like, so what are you thinking? And I'm like, well, we'd like to come down. You've invited us down before. We'd just like to come down, see a day of filming, walk the sets, and and then that turned into, well, why don't we get, the cast to help? And Charles Michael Davis, that played Marcel on the show, basically planned out my entire engagement. I forgot the speech. If you watch the video, it's really stupid because I forgot the speech halfway through. And so it makes no sense, but she still said yes. And that's what matters. And yeah, those guys were great down there. Danielle Russell, who was the star of Legacies, which was the follow-up series to the originals, she was there. The guy who played Charming in the Descendants, the Disney series, was on. He had a role, character named Roman on the series. He was there on set. And we just got to spend the whole day walking around we pretty much had free reign of the sound stages down in Atlanta. And it was really cool.
Oh, wow. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, it was, like I said, a lot of stories. There's a ton of stories. Just I can't advise everybody enough, when the book finally comes out, just pick it up, because that one's going to be a couple years away still, because there's just so much to edit and go through. But hoping to have the first book out this fall, just telling about our relationship and a lot of that, because right now, of course, addiction, a big topic nationwide. She's a recovering opiate addict. I'm a recovering alcoholic. We think people could benefit from hearing our story of how two crazy addicted people got together, got sober, and created a life together. So that's what we're kind of aiming for with the book.
Awesome. I really like that. And I also really like what you were saying about the Oddity Museum, how you want to show the reality of how things were. And sorry, I feel like I'm going to sneeze. But yeah, again, you stick to what you believe in, and you're keeping it how you do things, and it's authentic, and it's really awesome.
Yeah, I'll have to have you come check out one of the things sometime. We haven't booked any shows for 2024 yet. We've kind of taken a winter hiatus to kind of put some new things together and build some new displays up, and we've got some new things coming a little bit later in the year that I can't really talk about yet. We've gotten really close on a few big pieces, like huge, mega, massive pieces. And these are the things you always have to, like I said, always got to try for the things you want, no matter how ridiculous they sound. So a couple of years ago, there was a sale of a house out in California. It was Kurt Cobain's house that he lived in the Hollywood Hills that had been abandoned for years. What people didn't know, and I don't think it's still widely publicized out there, I verified this with the realtor and somebody that actually used to work maintenance in the house. When Kurt was living there, one of the last things he did was he wrote on the walls like this massive poem that was just all over like 2 or 3 sheets of drywall. When the guy went in there, the maintenance guy I talked to, he went in there, he literally painted over that. It was still there, but it was interior latex paint. So it would have been costly, but I believe we could have scraped the latex off, had it done professionally, and been able to preserve whatever Kurt had written on the walls. We got this close, and then the house sold.
Oh, man.
So they shut us down. We almost had. Actually, this is another funny story. The book Into the Wild, the story of Christopher McCandless that went to Alaska to try and escape his childhood trauma. He lived in a bus, passed away in a bus up there in the Alaskan wilderness back in the early 90s. They made a movie about it. Sean Penn directed a few years ago. And fantastic movie. He's one of my personal heroes from the stuff that I went through. I understand why he did it. But we wanted to claim the bus as our own. And there was an Alaskan law that if something had been abandoned on public property for a certain number of time, a certain amount of years, which it had been, that it could be claimed and, you know, whatever. We started that process and started reaching out to the Alaskan government. We talked to the mayor over there. We talked to the governor. We talked to whatever. It was literally less than a month later that bus was flown out of there. And if you read the press release, they mention in there people were trying to get it for their own less than ethical purposes. We had no unethical purposes with it, and that, we feel that was directly dinging us, because our goal, we had some people that lived up there that we knew that had gone actually out there, some of these outdoorsy guys that could get out there easily, and they said there was a way to cut it apart, you know, that we were gonna literally cut it into chunks, which is not ideal, but they were going to do that and then haul it out and then put it on a flatbed and send it back to Indiana for us. We got so close and they just shut us down right in the middle of it. But our plan was just to take it out to near the Salton Sea in California in the desert, where he had a place down there near Slab City, and make it a place for people to come pay tribute to him down there, because that was another one of his favorite areas. It's never going to happen. It's apparently at the museum in Fairbanks now, waiting to go on display. I'll go up there and see it, but I'm still kind of bummed that I didn't get to own it.
Yeah, that would have been really cool.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't know how we would have restored it anyway. I mean, you know, they were literally going to cut, like, here's a chunk of the roof, here's a chunk of the roof, here's a chunk of the frame, and we were going to have to get it all redone and re-sheet metaled. So it would have probably done more damage to it than it would have been worth. But it's just the principle of the thing. Like, we start the whole process of trying to claim this, trying to, you know, do something, and they literally do that and then send that one line in the press release just really pissed me off.
Yeah, definitely. If I was talking about you, then I'm sure there was nothing unethical. It's kind of crazy.
I get that it was, you know, a guy passed away in there, and we were not going to do anything to disparage his memory. I mean, the whole point of it was that. But, you know, I've tried to obtain like little relic pieces of the bus when they did the restoration on it that they've been doing, and the museum just has been rude and rude and rude. Won't even give us like a little 1x1 square of metal that they broke off that was rusted or anything. Like,
man,
just yeah, that's the kind of stuff that we would get if we had to. I'm not really into relic pieces, but just to have something associated with my heroes is a big deal.
Yeah, definitely. I've been working on a documentary about the movie School of Rock, and I met with the guy who got the drum set that they used in the final scene of the movie.
Oh, wow.
And he actually got a hold of the kid who played the drums on Facebook and gave him the drums that he played in the final scene of that movie. And they started a relationship, and that kid unfortunately ended up passing away a couple months later. But there was a special connection for him to be able to do that, and he's got several other memorabilia from the movie. So
it's awesome.
Definitely, yeah.
He needs to get connected with Jack, I think. I think Jack still has some of the, I remember reading, I think Jack still has one of his outfits from the movie, maybe the one from the last scene. So maybe we can get them connected or something.
Yeah, I think they did meet at Kevin's funeral.
Okay.
But if he's got his outfit from the ending, that's pretty awesome. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, that's you know, and that's another big way that we get things is we ask some of these people, hey, do you have anything left from? Right now, I'm bugging and pestering the set designer for the movie Tick, Tick, Boom about the life of Jonathan Larson, another one of my heroes. I'll never be able to own anything of Jonathan Larson's because there was so little, because he died so young. But just to have something, again, something attached to something that he did, it's meaningful to me. And that's, you know, our museum isn't going to impress anybody if you're not into the stuff that we like. But why would we collect things that we don't like? You know?
Exactly, yeah. And it all sounds like if you're into that kind of thing, you're going to love all of this. And it sounds awesome to me for sure. So maybe I'm biased, but sounds like it's awesome to me. So
yeah, it's a good time. And, you know, we get some dates. You can, we're on Facebook with the museum, the Wicked Wonders Museum. You can search it. I don't know the actual address off the top of my head anymore because it's not a travel season. So I kind of push that off to the side until I have to memorize it again. But yeah, just Wicked Wonders, Dark History and Oddities Museum on Facebook and Instagram. Sometimes we've got pictures there that'll show some of what we have, and sometimes we don't post a lot of the smaller things because we've got a lot of stuff that we have in storage and in vaults at people's houses and things, and it's a little crazy at this point.
All right. Well, awesome. Yeah, I'll put a link to that down in the description when this video gets posted too, so that people can get to that a little easier and check it out. It sounds really awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for all your time. I definitely appreciate talking to you and all the insight about different careers and all. Like I said, you've done a bunch of exciting things that most people are like imagination dreams. Like when they ask a kid, what do you want to do when you grow up, they're like a professional wrestler or a crime scene investigator, like all these things that you actually do.
I mean, that's the thing. Again, I'll say it one more time. If you want to do something, just go do it. Don't let anybody tell you can't. And it sounds so cliche, but that's the only way to make things happen. As the world gets crazier and crazier, the only way to do it is to go out there and make it happen. And you have to make it happen. Nobody else can. You have to.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We'll stay in touch. Hopefully people check out all that you have going on with the Oddity Museum, and yeah, cool. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, you too. And we'll definitely, anytime you guys need me, just give me a call. I'm always around somewhere.